The night was quiet, except for the sound of fire eating metal. The alien ship had crashed deep in the desert, its body broken and glowing red in the dark. A human soldier named Evan Cole walked through the smoke, his boots sinking into the soft sand. He was tired, his uniform torn, his rifle heavy in his hands. Evan had seen many strange things during the war between humans and aliens, but tonight was different. There were no screams, no gunfire, only the slow, dying sound of a ship that had fallen from the stars. He stopped when he heard a soft cry. It was weak, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. Evan followed the sound, stepping over broken metal and burned glass. When he reached the center of the wreck, he saw her. A girl, but not human. Her skin was pale blue, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Her silver hair was tangled, her clothes torn. She looked young, maybe 18 or 19 in human years. Her eyes were closed and her legs lay twisted under a metal beam. Evan dropped his gun and rushed to her side. Hey, can you hear me?" he said, not expecting an answer. Her eyelids moved. She made a sound, not words, just a soft hum, almost like a melody. Evan lifted the metal beam, using all his strength. It fell aside with a loud clang. He looked at her legs, and they were badly bruised, maybe broken. He didn't know if her species could heal or not. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." "I got you," he picked her up carefully. She was light, too light, like she didn't weigh more than a child. Her body felt cold and her breathing was slow. As he walked away from the burning ship, the fire behind them rose higher, lighting the desert sky. The girl opened her eyes just a little. They were large, glowing with a strange violet light. She looked at Evan, confused, scared, but also curious. When they reached a small cave nearby, Evan laid her down gently. He took off his jacket and covered her. She looked at him and said one word, something like Lyra. Evan blinked. "Lyra, is that your name?" She didn't answer, just nodded weakly. Her voice was musical, even when she was in pain. Evan smiled a little. "Okay, Lyra, I'm Evan. You're safe now." He tore a piece of cloth from his sleeve and wrapped it around her wounds. She didn't move, only watched him with quiet eyes. When he touched her legs, she flinched, shaking her head. "Okay," he said. "I won't move them." He looked out of the cave. The desert was silent again. No ships, no searchlights, just stars above and the faint smell of burning metal in the air. He turned back to Lyra. "You were in that ship, huh? What were you doing out here?" She didn't understand his words, but watched his face closely, as if trying to read his mind. Then very slowly she pointed at the sky and then at the horizon, where the stars met the dark edge of the land. "The ocean?" Evan guessed. "You want to see the ocean?" Lyra's eyes widened. She nodded once. Evan sighed. "That's far away, but maybe we can make it." He wasn't sure why he said that. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, like she had nothing else left in the universe. He gave her some water from his canteen. She tried to drink but coughed. He helped her sit up slightly, supporting her head. For a while, they stayed silent. Outside, the fire of the crashed ship faded, leaving only red smoke rising into the night. Evan leaned against the wall of the cave, watching her sleep. He should have reported her to command. It was protocol. Capture any alien survivor. But as he looked at her peaceful face, he couldn't do it. Something about her felt innocent. He closed his eyes for a moment, tired from the long night. That's when he heard it again, a sound coming from the crash site, a low metallic growl. Evan froze. He slowly reached for his rifle. The sound grew louder, something was moving in the fire. He looked back at Lyra, still asleep under his jacket. Her breathing was soft, her face calm. Evan whispered, "Don't worry, I'll protect you." Then he stepped out into the darkness, the red light of the burning ship flickering in his eyes. Something was still alive out there, and it was coming for them. The first rays of dawn touched the desert, painting the sand gold and red. The fire from the alien ship was now only smoke and twisted metal. Evan Cole stood outside the cave, holding his rifle tight. He hadn't slept much. Every sound made him turn his head. The memory of that low growl from last night still echoed in his ears. Whatever moved in the flames had vanished before he could see it. But Evan knew one thing, but it was hunting. Inside the cave, the alien girl still slept. Her name, Lyra, whispered softly in his mind. She looked peaceful now, her silver hair shining in the morning light that slipped through the cave's cracks. Evan stepped closer and sat beside her. He touched her forehead gently. She wasn't burning with fever anymore. He smiled. "You're tougher than you look," he murmured. When she opened her eyes, her violet pupils glowed faintly. She tried to speak but stopped, her lips trembling. Evan shook his head kindly. "It's okay. You don't have to talk. You're safe here." Lyra blinked, then looked at his canteen. Evan handed her some water. She drank slowly this time, her small hands shaking. Then, using a piece of charcoal from the burned ship, she began to draw on the cave floor. Evan watched as strange shapes appeared, circles, waves, stars. He frowned. "What's that?" She pointed at one of the drawings, waves moving under two moons. Then she pressed her hand to her heart and whispered one soft word, "Home." Evan understood. The ocean wasn't just a dream, it was a memory. Her home had oceans too. Maybe that's why she wanted to see Earth's. He smiled gently. "The ocean is far from here, Lyra. Many miles." She looked confused, tilting her head. He took a stick and drew a line in the sand. "Here," he pointed at one end. "We are here." "The ocean," he pointed far at the other end, "is here." Lyra stared at the drawing for a while, then looked up at him, eyes full of hope. She placed her hand on his in a quiet plea. Evan sighed. "You really want to see it, don't you?" She nodded. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "All right, I promise. I'll take you there." He didn't know why he said that. Maybe it was the look in her eyes. Maybe he was tired of fighting. For once, helping someone felt right. The day passed slowly. Evan searched the crash site for supplies. He found a few metal plates, a small energy core still glowing, and an alien medkit he couldn't understand. He also found tracks, deep claw-shaped ones leading away into the dunes. Something had walked out of that fire last night. Something big. When he returned, Lyra was awake, watching the horizon. She seemed calmer now, her breathing steady. Evan handed her a piece of ration bread. "It's not good, but it'll keep you alive." She sniffed it, then took a small bite. Her face twisted in disgust, and Evan laughed for the first time in days. "Yeah, I don't like it either." For a moment, there was peace. Two beings from different worlds, sharing silence in a broken world. But as the sun began to set, the sky filled with faint blue lights, small drones moving in formation. Evan's heart sank. He pulled Lyra back into the cave and dimmed the fire. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The drones flew low, scanning the area with beams of light. Evan held his breath. One beam passed near the cave entrance. Lyra covered her mouth, her eyes wide with fear. After a few minutes, the drones moved on, vanishing toward the horizon. Evan exhaled slowly. "They're looking for you," he said quietly. "Your people. Or maybe mine." Lyra shook her head. Then she reached out and touched his arm. The glow from her skin was soft, calming. For a second, Evan felt something, like warmth spreading through his body, washing away the fear. He looked at her, surprised. "What did you just do?" She only smiled, a small sad smile, and whispered something he didn't understand. That night, while Evan kept watch, Lyra watched him too. When he finally fell asleep, she turned her gaze to the stars. Her eyes glowed faintly as she whispered into the dark in her own language, a message no human could understand. The air shimmered for a moment, as if someone far away had heard her. Then it was gone. The next morning when Evan woke up, he found a strange mark drawn near her spot, a glowing circle with 3 lines through it. He asked, "What is this?" Lyra looked at the mark and whispered one word again. "Promise." Evan didn't know what it meant, but deep inside he felt something had changed. Somewhere out there in the endless desert, metal feet crushed the sand. A machine's red eye blinked awake, scanning the horizon. It had found their trail, and this time, it was not coming alone. The morning came quietly, but something in the air felt wrong. Evan Cole woke up to the sound of wind sweeping the sand outside the cave. The desert was calm, yet his soldier's instinct screamed danger. He reached for his rifle. Lyra was awake, sitting near the cave mouth, staring at the sunlight. Her silver hair glowed faintly, her violet eyes fixed on the horizon. Evan frowned. "You see something?" She didn't answer, only raised one trembling hand and pointed. Far away, a dark shape was moving across the dunes, slow, steady, and heavy. Evan lifted his scope and cursed softly. It was a drone, larger than the ones from last night, walking on 4 mechanical legs, its body covered in armor plates. Red sensors glowed like eyes. "Damn it," he muttered. "They found us." Lyra looked at him, confused, as he began throwing things into his backpack. Rations, water, ammo. "We have to move," he said. "Now." She tried to sit up, but her legs refused to move. Panic filled her eyes. "I got you," Evan said, lifting her onto his back.
Hold tight.
The sun beat down on them as he ran through the desert, boots kicking up sand. Behind them, the drone's heavy steps echoed like thunder. Boom! A blast tore through the sand just meters away. Evan stumbled but kept running. The machine fired again, twin beams slicing the air. Lyra cried out, clutching his shoulders. Her voice trembled as she spoke in her alien tongue, the words sharp and musical. "I don't understand," Evan shouted, jumping behind a dune. He turned and fired 3 rounds at the machine. The bullets sparked off its armor uselessly. The drone roared, a metallic growl that shook the ground. Evan pulled a grenade from his belt, yanked the pin, and threw it. The explosion knocked the machine back for a moment, but when the dust cleared, it was still moving. "Of course," Evan muttered. "That would have been too easy." Lyra touched his neck lightly. "Evan," she said, struggling to form the words. "Run, not fight," he almost smiled. "Good advice." "Wish I had a choice." The drone fired again. The blast hit the ground, sending them tumbling down a steep slope. Evan hit the bottom hard, the air knocked out of him. Lyra rolled beside him, coughing. "Are you okay?" he asked, crawling toward her. She nodded weakly. Then her eyes widened in alarm. She grabbed his hand and pressed it to her chest. Her skin shimmered, glowing lines running across her body like veins of light. "Lyra, what are you?" Suddenly, energy burst from her palms, forming a shield of blue light around them. The next blast from the drone hit the shield and bounced off, lighting up the desert like lightning. Evan stared in shock. "You can do that?" She didn't answer, only gritted her teeth as if the energy burned her. The shield flickered, then broke apart like glass. Evan picked her up again. "Okay, that's our cue to go." They ran toward a rocky canyon ahead. The walls were narrow and high, maybe enough to lose the machine. The drone followed, firing as it moved. Rocks shattered around them. Dust filled the air. Inside the canyon, the echo of every step doubled, bouncing off the stone. Evan's lungs burned. His legs screamed in pain, but he didn't stop. Then silence. He stopped behind a large rock, breathing hard. Did we lose it? Lyra tilted her head, listening. For a few seconds, nothing, then a faint sound like claws scraping metal. Evan cursed under his breath. "It's tracking us." He set Lyra down and pulled out his last grenade. "Stay here. If it gets close, you run, okay?" She shook her head violently, grabbing his arm. "No, not alone." Her words were broken but clear. Evan froze. Her eyes were full of fear, not for herself but for him. "All right," he said softly. "Then we stay together." The ground trembled again. The machine's shadow appeared at the canyon's entrance. Its red eye burned like fire. Evan aimed his rifle, waiting. "Come on, you piece of junk." The drone stepped closer. Just as it fired, Lyra screamed, a sound that wasn't human. The air around her exploded in light. The blast hit an invisible wave and shot back at the machine. The explosion tore through the canyon walls, sending rocks crashing down. When the dust settled, Evan lay on the ground, half buried under rubble. His ears rang. The machine was gone, just a pile of twisted metal. He felt a hand touch his cheek. Lyra was kneeling beside him, her legs still useless, tears running down her face. Her fingers glowed faintly as she touched his shoulder, and his pain faded. "Lyra," he whispered. "You healed me." She smiled weakly. Help." Then she collapsed into his arms, unconscious. Evan held her close, staring at the ruined canyon. His voice was barely a whisper. "What are you, Lyra?" Far above them, hidden in the clouds, a satellite turned its red lens toward the desert, locking onto their location. The chase wasn't over. The night had fallen again. The stars looked cold and sharp above the desert canyon. Evan Cole sat near a small fire, staring at the blue glow of the alien crystal in his hand. He had found it inside Lyra's suit, glowing like it was alive. Lyra slept quietly beside him, wrapped in his jacket. Her breathing was soft, almost peaceful. But Evan couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. She had stopped that blast. She had healed his wounds. She had power that could destroy or save. And yet, she still looked so fragile. He rubbed his tired eyes. "What are you hiding, Lyra?" he whispered. The fire crackled, throwing light on the cave walls. Strange marks covered the rocks, symbols glowing faintly, the same kind Lyra had drawn before. They weren't random. They looked like a language. Evan stood and traced one with his fingers. The moment he touched it, the rock shimmered and a soft hum filled the air. Lyra gasped awake. "No! Don't!" The cave walls lit up, showing images. A world under 2 moons, cities floating above silver oceans, creatures of light walking among them. Evan stepped back, amazed. "Is that your world?" Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. "Home," she said quietly. "Once. Beautiful." She pointed to one image. Giant machines tearing through cities, explosions across the sky. Her voice trembled. "War, my people." "Destroy," Evan frowned. "You were fighting in that war?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I was soldier." Evan stared at her, shocked. "You? But you said you can't walk." Lyra's eyes lowered. "I can." Evan froze. For a long moment there was only the sound of the fire. "You what?" She touched her legs. "I make them sleep. Not broken, I choose. No walk." "You chose to be paralyzed?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Power must stay quiet. If I walk, I fight. I hurt." Her voice broke. "Too many die." Evan looked at her, struggling to understand. "So you pretend to be weak. So you can't be used." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Yes, I know one kill again." Evan sat beside her, silent. He could see the pain in her eyes, not just fear, but guilt. The kind only soldiers carried. He understood that feeling too well. "You're not the only one who's tired of fighting," he said softly. "I lost people too. Good ones." Lyra looked up. "Then why save me?" Evan gave a small, tired smile. "Because maybe saving one life makes up for losing so many." She stared at him, eyes shining with quiet wonder. Then for the first time she smiled, a real, gentle smile. Outside, the wind howled across the canyon. Evan stood and looked out. "We should keep moving at dawn," he said. "If they tracked us here, they'll come again." Lyra nodded. "Ocean, far?" "Still far," he said. "But we'll get there." She tilted her head. "You promise?" "I do." That night Lyra couldn't sleep. She sat watching Evan as he rested. His face looked calm, but there were scars there, old and deep. She whispered softly in her own language, "You are not like the others, human." Her hand hovered over his chest, glowing faintly. A wave of light spread from her fingers, showing her glimpses of his memories. Battlefields, fire, loss, loneliness. She pulled her hand back quickly, heart aching. "You carry pain," she murmured. "Like me." The next morning came with red light bleeding across the desert sky. They packed what little they had and began walking toward the horizon. Evan carried her again, though his shoulders were sore and his legs heavy. Sometimes she would hum softly in his ear. Strange alien songs full of sadness and beauty. It made the long walk bearable. Hours passed. When they stopped to rest, Evan looked up at the sky. "You ever think about going back? If your people found you?" Lyra's face darkened. "They no forgive. I disobey. I stop fighting. They call me traitor. So you ran." "Yes." Her voice was small. "They take everything. Except this." She touched the glowing crystal. Evan frowned. "What is it?" She looked at him seriously. "Memory of all who die, my people's soul." The ground trembled suddenly. Evan turned fast. A shadow moved across the sand, large and slow. He grabbed his rifle. "They found us." Lyra's eyes widened. "Not machine," she said, her voice shaking. "Worse." A massive ship appeared above the horizon, black and silent, no lights, no markings. Evan's stomach tightened. "That's not one of ours." Lyra's hands trembled. "My people. They come." Evan stared at the rising ship, its dark form blocking the sun. "You said they'd never forgive you." She nodded. "They won't." The sandstorm grew stronger as the ship descended. Evan tightened his grip on the rifle. "Then we run," he said. "Again?" Lyra looked at him, fear and hope both burning in her eyes. "You still help?" Evan smiled faintly. "I promised, didn't I?" He lifted her onto his back once more. The wind screamed around them, carrying the roar of the ship. Some secrets, Evan realized, were heavier than truth, but some promises were stronger than fear. And this one, he intended to keep. The desert wind howled like a living thing. Evan Cole pushed through it, carrying Lyra on his back. Her faint glow lit the sand behind them, a soft blue trail fading into darkness. They had been running for hours. Above them, the alien ship still floated in the sky like a dark moon, silent and slow. Every few minutes, a flash of red light scanned the ground. They stayed low whenever it passed. Finally, Evan spotted the broken remains of an old communication tower, a relic from the war. "We'll rest there," he said. Inside, the air was cool and still. Metal beams groaned as the wind passed through the cracks. Evan set Lyra down on a pile of sandbags and dropped beside her, breathing hard. She looked at him with tired eyes. "You always help." "Why?" Evan smiled faintly. "Because you're trouble," he said. "And I have a bad habit of helping trouble." Lyra tilted her head, confused but smiled anyway. He looked at her legs. "You could walk if you wanted to, right?" She hesitated. "Yes." "Then why let me carry you all this time?" Lyra's voice was soft. "You carry more than me, Evan. You carry ghosts." He froze. Somehow she always saw right through him. Before he could reply, a sharp click echoed behind them. Evan spun around, rifle raised. A voice came from the shadows. "Easy, soldier." "It's me." 3 figures stepped into the dim light. Humans wearing desert camo. The one in front was tall, with a cybernetic eye that glowed faintly red. Evan recognized him instantly. Captain Rourke. Rourke smirked. "Didn't think we'd find you out here, Cole." His gaze slid to Lyra. "And that must be our missing alien." Evan stepped between them. "She's not a threat." Rourke laughed. "Not a threat? She wiped out an entire recon unit last night. We picked up the readings. Massive energy spikes. Off the charts." Evan's grip on the rifle tightened. "That was self-defense. We were attacked." "Doesn't matter," Rourke said coldly. "Command wants her alive. Alien tech like that could end the war for good." Lyra's eyes widened. She looked at Evan, frightened. "Evan." "No, go with them." Evan turned to Rourke. "You can't take her. She's done fighting." Rourke smiled darkly. "That's not your choice." He raised his weapon. "Step aside." Evan hesitated. These were his own people, soldiers he had once fought beside. But when he looked at Lyra, trembling and silent, his choice was clear. "No." Rourke sighed. "Didn't want it this way." The next second, everything exploded into motion. Gunfire cracked through the air. Evan dove to the ground, rolling behind a pillar. Sparks flew from the walls as bullets hit metal. Lyra screamed, covering her ears as the sound shook the room. Her hands began to glow. "Lyra, no!" Evan shouted. But it was too late. A burst of blue light exploded from her body, filling the room. The soldiers screamed as the energy hit them. The air twisted, and then silence. Evan slowly opened his eyes. The walls were scorched black. The soldiers were gone, only ashes left where they stood. Lyra sat in the middle of the room, shaking. Her glow faded, leaving her pale and weak. Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't want to," she whispered. "I tried to stop." Evan dropped his rifle and knelt beside her. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "You had no choice." She looked at him, eyes full of guilt. "I hurt your people. They would have killed you." He reached out, gently holding her face. "You're not a monster, Lyra. You're just trying to survive." For a moment, the only sound was the wind outside. Then Evan noticed something blinking in the corner, a small red light on one of Rourke's devices, a tracking beacon. He cursed. "They know where we are." Lyra looked up weakly. "Then we go." Evan nodded, helping her stand. But as they stepped outside, the sky above them split open, beams of light raining down from the alien ship. Lyra froze. "It's them," she whispered. "My people." The air vibrated. A deep hum filled the desert and a voice echoed from above, metallic and emotionless. "Lyra of the Seraph, you have violated your command. Surrender for judgment." Evan looked at her. "They tracked you too." Tears shimmered in her violet eyes. "They never stopped." She turned to him. "If they take me, they kill you." Evan smiled bitterly. "Then I guess I'm not letting them take you." He gripped his rifle and faced the sky. "We finish this together." Lyra's hand glowed again, resting on his shoulder. "No, Evan, together and soon." Before he could ask what she meant, a beam of light enveloped them, bright and blinding, and in that moment, Evan felt the ground vanish beneath him. Wind roared in Evan Cole's ears as the light swallowed him. For a heartbeat there was only white. Then the world came back, cold, wet, and endless. He was lying on damp sand. Waves crashed nearby, rolling under a gray sky. Evan sat up, coughing. Salt burned his throat. The air smelled of rain and seaweed. The ocean. He had made a promise, and somehow they were here. He turned fast. "Lyra." She lay a few feet away, half in the surf, silver hair spread like light on water. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing faint violet. Evan splashed toward her. "Hey, you okay?" Lyra looked around, wonder softening her face. She whispered one word. "Beautiful." The waves touched her hands, and the glow around her grew stronger, like the sea itself answered her. Evan helped her sit. How did we get here?" Lyra's voice trembled. "My people's ship, teleport beam. I change its path before they pull us in." She gave a weak smile. "I used last of my power." Evan stared at the horizon. The ocean stretched forever, silver and alive. "You said you wanted to see it, now you have." Lyra nodded, tears mixing with the rain. "On my world, sea shines with light. I dreamed Earth's would too, and it does." For a while they just sat there, listening to the sound of waves. The chaos, the fear, it all felt far away. But peace never lasted long. Evan noticed a shape above the clouds, a shadow moving fast. A ship. "They found us," he muttered. Lyra didn't move. "I know. They come for me." "Then we have to run." She shook her head slowly. "No more running." Evan grabbed her shoulders. "You think I'm leaving you here?" Lyra looked into his eyes. "If they see you with me, they kill you. I don't care. You must." Her hand rose, trembling, touching his face. "I made mistake in war. I destroyed to protect. I can't do that again." Lightning flashed over the ocean. The ship's engines thundered above them. Sand whipped through the air. Evan stood in front of her, shielding her from the wind. "If this is the end, then I'm ending it with you." Lyra's lips trembled. "You are strange, human." He grinned faintly. "I've been told that." The ship descended lower, waves splitting under its engines. A deep voice boomed from above, mechanical and cold. "Lyra of the Seraph, stand for judgment. Do not resist." Lyra closed her eyes. "They think I am weapon. You're not." "I am," she whispered. "But you made me more." The ground began to shake. Beams of blue light cut through the mist. One struck near Evan, sending him tumbling. He coughed and crawled toward her. "Go," she cried. "Please, Evan." He ignored her and kept moving. "I told you, I promised." Lyra's tears glowed like tiny stars. She reached out her hand. He took it. Their palms met. Human warmth and alien light. Energy flowed between them, gentle but powerful. Evan felt it through his bones. Her memories, her pain, her hope. Images flashed in his mind. Her world burning, her people falling, her decision to never walk again, to never fight again. And now she was ready to break that promise, to save him. "No," he whispered. "Don't do it." Lyra smiled sadly. "You carried me to the ocean. Now I carry you home." Before he could stop her, light burst from her body, pure and bright as sunrise. The waves froze mid-motion, glowing silver. The ship above them shook, alarms screaming. Evan shielded his eyes, shouting her name. When the light faded, the ship was gone, vanished into clouds. The beach was quiet again. Only the rain fell softly. Evan blinked, vision blurry. "Lyra?" She was standing now, barefoot on the wet sand. Her legs were moving, strong, steady. She turned toward the sea, wind in her hair. Evan's heart lifted. "You can walk." Lyra nodded slowly. "For a moment. For goodbye." He took a step forward. "You don't have to go." She looked back at him, smiling through tears. "If I stay, they find you again. But now they think I am gone." She touched his chest gently. "You showed me life, Evan Cole. Not war, not fear. Just life." The glow around her body began to fade into mist. Her feet sank into the waves, becoming light itself. "Lyra!" Evan shouted, running toward her. She looked over her shoulder one last time. "Thank you for the ocean." And then she was gone. Only ripples remained, glowing blue before fading into the dark water. Evan fell to his knees, the surf crashing against him. His hands trembled as he searched the sand. Something small shimmered nearby. A crystal, the same one she had carried. Inside it, faint light moved like waves. He held it close to his heart. The ocean wind carried her voice, soft and distant. Promise kept. Evan looked out at the endless horizon. The rain stopped and sunlight broke through the clouds. For the first time in years, he felt peace. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, Lyra watched the ocean, through him. The sea was calm now. Morning sunlight danced on the waves like liquid glass. The sky stretched wide and pale above the ruins of the coast. Evan Cole sat near the waterline, his clothes torn and covered in salt. His rifle lay beside him, half buried in wet sand. He had not moved all night. The only sound was the whisper of the tide washing over his boots, pulling back again. Every wave felt like a heartbeat, soft, steady, alive. He turned the small crystal in his hand. Inside it, blue light shimmered faintly, swirling like a living ocean trapped inside glass. It pulsed whenever he breathed, as if answering him. "Lyra," he whispered. He didn't know how long he'd been sitting there, hours, maybe days. He didn't care. All he knew was that she was gone, but not completely. Sometimes, when he closed his eyes, he could still hear her voice. Soft, broken English saying his name, Evan. He smiled sadly. "Yeah, I'm still here." Behind him, the wreckage of the old tower burned slowly, smoke curling into the morning air. The last of his signal flares had gone out hours ago. No one was coming. He was alone, but somehow he didn't feel lost. He stood and looked at the horizon. The ocean was endless, and for the first time he didn't see emptiness. He saw hope. He pulled the crystal from his pocket again. "You wanted to see the ocean?" he said quietly. "Now you're part of it." The wind shifted, carrying a faint hum, almost like her voice answering. He laughed softly. "You still listening, aren't you?" Evan walked down the beach. Every step left prints that filled quickly with water. He stopped when he reached the edge of the surf and looked down. The reflection in the water showed him. Not alone. Behind his own shape stood a faint outline, blue light, silver hair moving like smoke in the breeze. "Lyra," he whispered. The image smiled. "Hello, Evan." He froze, breath caught in his throat. "Am I dreaming?" Her reflection tilted its head. "Not dream, memory. Crystal, hold my essence. You carry me now." He knelt, touching the water, though his fingers only met cold salt and foam. "I thought you were gone." "I am," she said softly. "But not lost. You kept promise. You showed me your world. You showed me the ocean." He swallowed hard. "I wish I could have done more." Her eyes glowed faintly. "You did more than anyone. You carried me when I couldn't walk. You fought when I couldn't fight. You saw me when everyone saw only weapon." The wind blew harder, waves splashing against his legs. The reflection began to fade. "Wait," Evan said quickly. "Don't go yet." Lyra smiled, warm, gentle. "I can't stay long. energy fading. He clenched the crystal tightly. What happens now? Live, she said simply. Live, Evan, for both of us, he shook his head. Without you, it feels empty. Then fill it, she whispered. Build, not destroy. Protect, not fight. You have heart stronger than war. Her voice was fading now, echoing in the sound of the waves. Evan felt tears sting his eyes. Lyra, I'll never forget you. I know. Her tone softened. When wind touches your face, I am there. When ocean sings, I am near. The reflection smiled one last time. Goodbye, Evan Cole. Then she was gone. The sea turned still again. No voice, no light. Just water stretching to infinity. Evan stood alone, holding the crystal close to his chest. The glow inside it faded to a soft, steady pulse, like a heartbeat. He looked toward the horizon, whispering, Goodbye, Lyra. A gull cried overhead, the only sound breaking the silence. He turned and began walking along the shore. His legs ached, his clothes were heavy, but his steps were steady. For the first time in years, he wasn't running. He was moving forward. Behind him, the tide reached up and erased his footprints. The wind carried his voice across the water, a whisper lost among the waves. As the sun rose higher, the crystal flickered in his hand. Inside, just for a moment, he saw her again, standing at the ocean's edge, smiling, and then she turned, walking into the light. Evan smiled back. Promise kept. He placed the crystal on a smooth rock, letting the sea wash over it. The blue glow spread into the water, scattering like starlight, until the waves themselves seemed alive. He watched until it disappeared completely. Then he lifted his face to the sun, took a deep breath and whispered, For you, Lyra, I'll live. The ocean answered with a single, endless wave, rolling gently against the shore, as if the world itself said farewell. And in that moment, the soldier who once carried an alien girl through the ashes of war finally understood what peace felt like.